Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. The Mysteries of Fasting by Imam al-Ghazali, translated from the Arabic by Ustad Abdul Rahman Fitzgerald. Chapter 1. On the outward obligations and sunnah elements of fasting, and what is required if the fast is broken. There are 6 outward obligations of fasting. 1. The first obligation is to watch for the beginning of the month of Ramadan. This is marked by sighting the crescent of the new moon, and if it is cloudy, then Sha'ban is completed as 30 days. Here, by sighting, we mean knowledge. This can be gained by accepting the word of a certified witness, whereas the sighting of the new moon of Shawwal requires accepting the word of 2 witnesses to ensure that worship is correct. So if someone hears from one witness that the crescent has been sighted, and he feels certain that what the witness says is true, and he has no doubts about his honesty, then that person must fast. And this holds true even if the judge himself has not announced it. In such a case, each servant must follow what he believes to be correct concerning his worship. If the moon is sighted in one town and not in another, and between them is a distance of less than 2 days' journey, then both towns must fast. But if the distance between them is greater than 2 days' journey, then each of them should reach its own judgment, and the obligation to fast is not shared. 2. The second obligation is intention. Every night of Ramadan, a person must formulate a clear, specific, and decisive intention to fast the next day, and this intention must remain through the night. To formulate this intention once for the entire month is not sufficient, and this is what we mean when we say every night. And if he were to express this intention on the day of fasting itself, it would not be permissible for the fast of Ramadan or for any other obligatory fast. And this is what we meant by remain through the night. It is permissible, however, to express the intention for a voluntary fast on the morning of that day. And if his intention was simply to fast, but was not specific, or even to fast an obligatory fast, it would not be permissible for the fast of Ramadan. Rather, he must express the intention to fast tomorrow, the fast of Ramadan made obligatory by God Azza wa Jal. If he made the intention on a night of doubt to fast the next day if it were Ramadan, this would also not be permissible because it is not decisive. But if his intention was based on what a witness said, even given the possibility that the witness might be mistaken or lying, then his resolve to fast is sound, both in this case and in the analogous case of doubt about the last night of Ramadan. None of this prevents his intention from having the quality of resolve and decisiveness. And the same holds true for a situation in which someone must make the best determination he can about the following day, as in the case of someone imprisoned in a dungeon. If he has made every effort to determine the month and is convinced that the next day is Ramadan, the fact that doubt about it may exist does not annul his formulation of intention. However, if he himself is in doubt, and it is a night of doubt, then even if he expresses his intention to fast the following day in a verbally decisive manner, it serves no purpose, for the place of intention is the heart, and it is inconceivable for decisiveness and doubt to coexist. Similarly, if his intention was made in the middle of Ramadan, and someone said, "I will fast tomorrow if it is Ramadan," this would not harm his intention in the least, because it would be merely uttering some words, while in the seat of intention, doubt would be inconceivable because there is complete certainty that the next day is Ramadan. If someone formulates the intention to fast the following day, and then eats while it is still night, that does not invalidate his expression of intention. And if a woman who was menstruating formulated the intention to fast the following day, and her menstruation ended and she bathed before dawn, her fast would be valid. 3. The third obligation is that a person must abstain from allowing anything to enter his body, if this happens intentionally while he remembers that he is fasting. This includes food, drink, tobacco, and an enema. The fast is not broken, however, by medicinal bloodletting, cupping, or by the use of antimony around the eyes. In addition, the introduction of a probe into the ear does not break the fast, nor does a catheter into the urethra, unless a liquid dripping from it reaches the bladder. Anything that enters his body unintentionally, such as dust from the road or a fly that is swallowed, does not break the fast, nor does water when someone is rinsing out his mouth in the ablution or otherwise, unless he does this excessively by taking water too far back into the mouth, for in that case, the act is done with intent. This is what we mean above by the word intentionally. The words, while he remembers that he is fasting, mean that forgetting that he is fasting and eating or drinking does not break his fast, but if a person eats intentionally, either at the beginning or the end of the fasting day, and then it becomes absolutely clear to him that he ate during the fasting day, he must make up that day. On the other hand, if, after making an effort to ascertain the truth, he remains convinced that he did not eat during the period of fasting, then he is not required to make up the day. In general, a person should not eat close to the very beginning and end of the day unless he has first looked carefully and made an effort to know whether it is time to eat. 4. The fourth obligation is to abstain from sexual relations. This is defined as the male organ entering the vagina far enough that the glans is covered. If the fasting person engages in intercourse while forgetting he or she was fasting, the fast is not broken, just as it is not broken if someone has intercourse at night or has a nocturnal emission and wakes up needing to perform the greater ablution. If a person is having sexual relations with his spouse and dawn breaks and they seize at that moment, their fast is valid. But if they continue, their fast is invalidated and they need to pay compensation. 5. The fifth obligation is to abstain from masturbation, which is defined as the intentional emission of semen with or without sexual relations with one's spouse. This breaks the fast, but to kiss her or lie with her does not, as long as there is no emission, although it is disapproved of, except for an elderly man or for a younger man in control of his desires. So there is no harm in kissing, but refraining from it is preferable. And if a man fears that from kissing or touching he will have some emission, and yet he does it, with the result that seminal fluid that precedes, ejaculation, is emitted, then he has broken his fast by his failure to stop. 6. The sixth obligation is to abstain from induced vomiting. This breaks the fast unless the one fasting had no control over it. And if a person swallows the phlegm that has reached his throat or esophagus, this does not break his fast. It is allowed because of how widespread this problem is. But if it reaches his mouth and he swallows it, then he has broken his fast. If the fast is broken. If the fast is broken, there are 4 possible duties. These duties are to make up the day of fasting, to pay compensation, to abstain for the rest of the day in order to appear like others who are fasting, or to make amends. 1. Making up the day, qada. Making up the day of fasting is a general obligation on every adult Muslim of sound mind who did not fast, with or without excuse. So for example, after her menstruation, a woman makes up the days she missed, and someone who renounced Islam makes up the days after returning to the faith. But for a disbeliever, a child, or someone who is not of sound mind, there is no obligation to make up missed days. In making up these days, there is no stipulation that these days must be continuous or all at one time. Rather, they can be made up in whatever way a person wishes, separately or together. 2. Paying compensation, kafara. This is only an obligation on someone who broke the fast by having sexual relations, but not on someone who broke it through masturbation, eating, drinking, or having sexual contact with one's spouse short of intercourse. The amends to be paid is the freeing of a slave. If that is too difficult for the person, then he should fast 2 months consecutively. And if he does not have the ability to do that, then he should give 60 poor people a measure, mud, of grain or dates for each day missed. 3. Abstaining for the rest of the day. This is obligatory for anyone who broke the fast with willful disobedience, or fell short in respecting it completely. It is not obligatory for a woman whose menstruation ended and who then made the greater ablution, or for a traveler who arrived at his destination after a 2-day journey during which he did not fast. It is also obligatory to refrain from eating and drinking for the remainder of the day on a day when there is doubt about it being Ramadan, or if the crescent moon of Shawwal has only been seen by one witness. It is better to fast during a journey than to break the fast, unless the traveler does not have the strength. In respect to the traveler, he should not break his fast on the day of his departure if he had begun fasting, but not yet set out by the beginning of the day. The same holds true on the day of his return. If he had started that day fasting, he should finish the fast. 4. Paying expiation, fidya. Expiation may be paid by a pregnant or nursing mother who did not fast for fear that it would harm her baby. This means to give 1 measure, mud, of wheat to 1 poor person for each day missed, and also later to make up that day. And as for an elderly, infirm person, if he cannot fast, he should give in charity 1 measure for each day missed. The 6 sunnah elements of fasting. These are 1. To delay the pre-dawn meal. 2. To hasten to break the fast at sunset with a date or water before offering the sunset prayer. 3. To refrain from using the toothstick after noon. 4. To be generous in giving during the month of Ramadan, based on what is discussed in the mysteries of zakah. 5. To study the Quran. 6. To retreat, i'tikaf, in the mosque, especially during the last 10 days of the month, as was the practice of the Messenger of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. According to the hadith, when the last 10 days arrived, he would fold up his bed, tighten his waistcloth, and enjoin the same upon his family. This means he would be steady in worship during this period, since the night of power occurs during this time. It was most likely during the odd-numbered nights, and probably on the 21st, 23rd, 25th, or 27th. For the retreat, it is preferable that the days be consecutive. If someone vows to make an uninterrupted retreat of a certain number of days, that vow is broken if he interrupts those days by leaving the mosque for anything except what is absolutely essential, such as visiting a sick person, bearing witness in a legal case, attending a funeral, visiting a friend, or renewing his ablution. If he leaves to answer the call of nature, this does not break his retreat. He should then perform the ablution in his home, but not attend to any other business on the way. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in retreat, he did not leave except to answer the call of nature, and would not ask about a sick person except while passing by. The continuity of the retreat is broken by sexual relations, but not by kissing, and there is no harm, while in the mosque, to use scent, contract a marriage, eat, sleep, and wash the hands in a basin, since all those things may become necessary during a continuous retreat. Nor is the continuity of the retreat broken if some portion of the body is outside the mosque, for a hadith states that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to put his head out of the mosque, where Aisha radiyallahu anha could comb his hair from her adjacent room. Whenever someone leaves the retreat to answer the call of nature, he needs to renew his intention upon returning, unless he had previously made the intention to complete a retreat of 10 days. Even then, it is better to renew the intention.